Have you ever been working on a product model inside a Blender, and then as you go along, you basically just find that throughout all the different operations you apply, you just end up with too much detail or too many vertices to actually make your mesh anywhere manageable? Everything's falling apart, it's frustrating, it's time consuming, and worst of all, it stops you from actually creating what you want to create. Well, what if I told you that there is a smarter way to work? A way to keep your workflow clean and flexible so you can focus on creating beautiful renders instead of the whole like confusing process. But today I'm going to show you how to master this workflow and Blender's modeling tools to help you take your models to the next level. So how exactly can we use Blender's modifiers to use this non-destructive workflow? Let me break it down step by step. Okay, the first modifier that we're going to walk through is obviously the subdivision surface modifier. So if you don't know how to add modifiers, on the right, go to the modifier tab, select add modifier, click on search, and then just type in subdivision surface. Okay, easy. Basically, it goes and starts smoothing out your mesh. You can change the levels, or you can actually press one control and 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. on your keyboard to change through the different resolutions of the subdivision surface. Now, you actually have like very little control over this just by default, but there are multiple different ways that you can control this to kind of shape it to how you want. So basically, the whole subdivision basically works off of blending between kind of the vertices. So if I was to delete the side faces, you can see obviously it basically will go and blend between all of them. If I was to have this face removed, you'll see it basically goes like there, up and across, and then it'll blend them out like there. So if I was to grab these and move them around, you see it basically changes the whole shape of it pretty easily. But what happens if we wanted to have like our original cube and be able to still kind of change these shapes or sharpen up the edges? Well, we actually have three methods. So firstly, we can just go add edge loops like this, and then use these wherever we want to sharpen up the edge. You see, immediately after doing that, it's no longer a circle. It's more of a like squarish kind of thing, but the rest of the side's a circle. Whereas if I was to go add some edges to each side, now you see it's slightly like rounded square type thing. Now, you could also go and step this up a notch, and instead of adding like just one edge loop in the middle, you could go add edge loops and then slide them over to where we want. And you can obviously use this to have a more dynamic like width. So yeah, I can make like this bottom bit be very like a more harsh edge, bring this down, have a smooth edge, and I can also take this inside like the bottom and go I to inset, and there you go. So you see now this bottom has a very like sharp edge, but like this top bit is quite smooth. So you see, we basically started using these to control the sharpness of all the edges. Now, we also have two other ways of doing this, and these are more non-destructive ways of actually using subdivision. So if I was to duplicate the shape and get rid of all my edges I just added, you see, we're back to the circle. Now, one way of actually doing this is just by using the crease or the mean crease or the crease edge tool. So if I was to select this bottom bit, you can see I can go Shift E, and then as you see, as I bring it up, it goes and clamps it in like that. Cool. Now, same thing at the top. If I just select these edges, I can go Shift E and then pull it in. You can also grab them over here. This is a much more non-destructive way because obviously we can go change it up and down and then it will never kind of update it. Obviously, this is probably going to give us a much more cleaner result, but that's just because this kind of just doesn't have enough edges. So if we to add more edges, then it'll kind of work better. But the third way of doing this, which is even better and actually works a bit better than this crease, it's just one way of doing it, is by using a bevel modifier. Now, if I was to delete these edges again, what we can actually do is go add a bevel modifier to this. And you see, there's nothing by default, but that's because we had the bevel before the that's because we have the bevel after the subdivision. So you see, if I turn off the subdivision, you'll see basically what it's going to do is just go bevel edge slightly like that. Now, if I was to subdivide this now, you see, it's actually gone from being like obviously rounded to quite square. And because of that, the reason is because you'll see, like, obviously, this is now bringing some edges up here. So now when it's smoothing out, it just has more edges up there to kind of protect the shape. So what we can actually change this to is changing the bevel segments to 3 or to 2. And you see, because of that, we have like one side, like the middle, and then the outside. And then with that, we can change the profile to 1. So you see, now it's gone back to the original shape. And with that, we can turn the subdivision on. And you see now we basically have a bevel that will control our subdivision. And you can see we can pull something out to choose how much we want to kind of change each shape. And because of that, we can also change to another non-destructive thing of using with the bevel, which is the mean bevel weight. So if I was to do the same thing as we did kind of before, grab this bottom and then we can change our mean bevel weight. And in this case, the higher the number is actually going to be more smooth. So if I change this bevel to weight, you see we go back to default. If I change this bevel weight to, like, you see 0.118 or 0.18, if I drag it up, you see as I drag it up, it goes and changes to a like more smoothed out piece. So you see that's basically what's beveling, and we can change the actual width of it here. And then we can do the same thing on top. So we go here, mean bevel weight to 1. Now if I turn this on and have a substitution on, you see this is what it looks like. So we can go kind of set what we want. So maybe there. Then we can grab the bottom and we go drag the mean bevel weight down. And you see there, now this bottom bit is like now being brought in and smoothed out more. And there we go. Now, there are some huge problems that you may run into if you kind of mess up your model before adding your modifiers. So let me just walk through what those problems are and how you can easily solve them. So first thing you have to remember is the order of your modifiers in your modifier stack matters. So as I said before, the bevel needs to go before the subdivision. If I had it the other way around, it's going to work completely different and not going to do what I want. Okay, so remember the stack is in the order of it does. And also when you're applying your mesh, remember to apply it top to bottom, or just go Control A and Visual Geometry to Mesh. Speaking of Control A, I'm applying stuff. Basically, before you add your modifiers, make sure to apply these transforms, especially the scale. Rotation, slightly less important, location, less important. If I was to have some sort of mesh and go bevel it, and if I scale it inside of object mode, it's going to be very different to if I scale it inside of edit mode. So I'll take these out like this. You see this one, I'll go scale Y like that. Now, if I turn my subdivision off, you'll see my bevel basically, if I bring this in, will be still consistent. Let me actually just go bring it up to something that actually looks a bit better. So you see like this. Now, if I have it like this and I go bring it back to basically a square and go scale in object mode, you see that now goes and stretches out the bevel. Now this is going to happen to all the stuff. Basically, when you scale inside of object mode, it's kind of like fake scaling it because you can always go Alt S and reset it back to default. So it's never actually having a true scale applied to it. So the easy way to fix this, literally just go Control A, scale. And there we go, we have fixed that thing. Another potential issue is having vertices on top of each other, having gaps in your mesh, etc., stuff like that. So make sure that if you are taking your mesh and if you like extrude stuff, you see maybe this bevel is not working and it's because we have some vertices on top of each other. Easiest way to check that is to select everything with A, go M, and by distance, and you see merge by distance, remove 4 vertices. Now it's fixed that. And our third issue that you could probably run into is having your normals flipped. If you have sections of your mesh that have their normals flipped, which is basically the faces are facing the wrong way, you can actually check that by opening up your viewport overlays and going to face orientation. You see here, everything is fine, and then the other side is red with this face right here. To actually fix that, just go Shift and N, and that will recalculate. If stuff isn't like recalculated correctly, you can select those parts, go Alt N and a flip, or you see all of this, but yeah, flip to flip them like that. By the way, if you are struggling with the whole process of learning how to make professional product renders inside of Blender, then what you can do is check the first link down below, and you can go check out my 30-day product modeling masterclass, which will take you through everything you need to know to make your first product render inside of Blender. And you can actually grab 50% off while the whole thing is still in beta. You have an awesome product model, but you actually need to learn how to make a beautiful render inside of Blender. So click this video to learn how to instantly improve your product renders with some beautiful lighting setups. Hope to see you there. Bye-bye.